Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Life's a Drag live. We are live. Jason Galvin, what up?
We're doing it live.
We'll write it. We'll do it live. Do it live, I say.
We'll do it live.
Jason Galvin, seriously, when
What
you
up?
used to live TV, did you guys have
Yeah.
like stressful moments like that? We'll just do it live. We'll do it live.
Stressful moments on live TV. No,
Did you ever swear on live TV?
never. I somehow, and you know me, I enjoy a negative word or two.
Sure.
I somehow never actually swore on air. It was kind of a miracle, like one of life's great mysteries.
Right. Apparently, the mic was open at the races someplace earlier this year, and it picked me up saying a choice word. And Alan Reinhardt goes, "We heard you," and I'm like, "Oh, you did? Cool. Sorry, my bad." I was like, "Oops, sorry."
Whatever, Alan.
Yeah, it's like,
fire me.
As long as Alan's the only one that heard it, and our boss, he's got like 9,000 voices in his head, so I'm sure that kind of slipped through the cracks there. But
oh yeah,
apparently I have done it. I have done it today. So hey man, we're going to Topeka this week.
Topeka.
Are you excited? Tell me how excited you are.
I mean, I've never been to Topeka, so in that regard, I'm excited. Yeah.
Yes.
We are. Look, so we've got 3 tracks left that we currently race on to scratch off my list. Topeka, Brainerd, which I've been to Brainerd for NASCAR. You and I've had this conversation.
Yes.
When I was in college, I did a lot of stuff with NASCAR. And there was a time where I was one of the couple people who were lucky enough to travel with the what was then the K&N West Series. It's now the ARCA Menard Series West. And they decided to go to Brainerd one year, which didn't make a lot of sense to me logistically. Like the West Series, the furthest east the West Series got was Colorado. And one year they were like, guys, let's go to Brainerd, Minnesota. And I was like,
let's go there.
You know, the East Series goes to Iowa, and that's farther west than this. Send the East Series up. But anyways, so we went on Memorial Day weekend the first year. And it was a Saturday race. I flew into Minneapolis on Saturday morning, got in a rental car with 2 other people who were producing and co-anchoring the radio broadcast with me, drove up to Brainerd. It rained most of the day. We somehow got the race in. Michael self-dominated and won. And then we drove back to Minneapolis that night. Went to bed at like 2 a.m., got up at 4 a.m., got on a plane at 5 a.m., and was back in Phoenix in time to see the green flag for the Indy 500.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
that's my Brainerd experience. So.
Brainerd is definitely the farthest drive I think we have from
the airport. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. And then the third track on my list is I've actually never been to Dallas. I've been to the city of Dallas several times. My family is very, very close with Billy Meyer. They go to the Motorplex all the time, but I've never actually made the trip because that time of year historically has lined up with, silly things like college or work. But now I get to go for work, so it's great. So, anyways, we're gonna check 2 races off here in the next 2 weeks. So
beautiful. Well, very good. Well, we're excited. I'm kind of excited to get out of my house. I got to do laundry tomorrow. My wife,
I'm excited to get out of my house.
I had a lunch appointment earlier today, hustled home to get back for this. I got to take my mom out. I don't have to do it. I'm going to take my mom out for her anniversary. My dad passed away in October, so she's feeling it right now. So she needs her baby boy to take her out to dinner. So we're going to have a little family dinner tonight. So yeah, it's going to be a good time. I got to have a good time. Then you got to do laundry and then getting on a plane to Kansas City and then driving to beautiful Topeka. We get to pass Lawrence, Kansas, which is kind of cool. You can see the college.
Oh, home of Rock Chalk. I didn't realize that.
Rock Chalk, baby.
Home of Rock Chalk. That's exciting.
Yeah. So it doesn't look like it's going to be unbelievably crazy hot, but let's get in with our guest because you and I both have commitments today.
Yes, we have a guest.
Yep, Jason,
very excited here.
Feel free to
yes, because when I started kind of forging my way into the world of drag racing, this guy who has been a lifelong family friend of ours was one of the first people to really kind of grab me, put his arm around me, and say, "If you need anything, I'm here." And knew that I kind of wanted to forge my own way and do my own thing. And even though I had family support and he's been lifelong friends with my uncle, was always supportive of me kind of making my own way. So welcoming in to Life's a Drag, my very good friend, our very good friend, and one of the coolest people at the drag strip, the crew chief for Clay Millikins, Parts Plus, Summit, Rick Ware Racing Ford, 2-time winner this year, Jim Oberhofer in the house. What up, Jimmo?
What's going on?
God, that was a long intro, Jason Galvin.
Dude, I love Jimmo.
Like that, though?
Yeah, I've known Jason for a long time. It's like, and now he's like announcing races and all this cool stuff. I'm like, man.
Yeah, you're probably like, I knew him when. It was like snot coming out of his nose.
He did. He used to yell at me. Get out of my pit. Don't touch the race car.
Yeah, not that wrench. That wrench. Get me that one.
Yeah, the one year I got to work on Shirley's car, Jim would grab me and go, hey, when you get back to the pit, do these 3 things. And they'd be the 3 things he knew would piss Tobler off. So
yeah, we want to piss Tobler off. That's always a great idea.
That's awesome. So everybody out there in the world knows Jimmo, but Jimmo, how long have you been doing this? I mean, you've been with multiple teams. Your family is synonymous with drag racing, like the Galvins. How long have you been crew chiefing, or just around the sport of drag racing?
Well, pretty much since I was able to go to the races with my dad. He had junior fuel cars, and then they switched over to Top Fuel cars in the early 70s. So whenever I was to go, he would drag me along and my brother Jono along, and we'd go to the races. And there's lots of pictures of us at the racetrack when we were little. And probably my first recollection of like actually remembering being at the races was probably, I would say, early 70s. Probably either Maple Grove Raceway or maybe Island Dragway in New York. Just we weren't growing up in New Jersey. My dad couldn't take us to the races because they had this stupid law there that you had to be 17 years old or older to be in the pits. So the only time we got to see my dad race in New Jersey with their car, my poor mom would have to take my brother and sister and I and sit in the grandstands, the spectator grandstands, all day to wait to see Dad's Top Fuel car run. And it was probably a little much for Mom to take care of it, but Mom was awesome. She always did those cool things for us back then. But that was, back then, growing up around it was great. And then my family, my mom and dad, decided to move to Plano, Texas, just north of Dallas. And my dad would still go to the races and stuff, but we didn't go quite so much anymore. And then when I was in high school, I really started like looking at drag racing again because, I started driving cars. We were able to get a driver's license down here when I was 15 back then. And so, of course, the urge to go fast was always there, and wanted to do it with my own cars. But my dad, he worked at Chaparral Trailers. He painted trailers. He painted cars for the Raymond Beal, for the Blue Max. And then he opened up his own shop. So we were really like right next door to Chaparral Trailers. And then down the street was the Blue Max shop. And that was like really, really cool, being able to be around all of that. So my dad had a gentleman, Morris McDonald, that worked for Frank Cook and Chuck Landers on their alcohol funny car. It was a drag-on Charger back then. And so I started going over to their shop at night and scraping rubber out from underneath the body, polishing wheels, and I was hooked. Shortly after I was helping Jay Meyer on his alcohol dragster, and during that time I had met Scott Coletta. My dad had painted some trailers for Connie Coletta, the old Chaparral fifth wheel trailers, and so Scott was always in town, one way or another, because it seemed like Dallas was where everybody came to back then. And, struck up a friendship with Scott. And then I started bugging him about wanting to work on his car. And in the early beginning of the 1988 season, Scott called me up, says, "You ready to go to work?" And so I said, "Absolutely." And went to work, had a great career at Cleta Motorsports for 31 years. I was there. Absolutely loved it. And, and then, after towards the end of the 2018 season, wasn't sure that I really wanted to go racing again, but, got a call from my friend Paul Lee and Doug Stringer, and helped out Doug Stringer with Clay Milliken's car, and and as kind of a consultant, and then put together Paul Lee's funny car, and just had a great time. And then early last year, Doug wanted me to take over running Clay's car, and I kind of wanted to go back full-time racing. I said the year before, I was kind of jealous of all my crew chief friends that were in the countdown and competing for a championship. And I said, I think I could still do that. And so luckily for me, Doug gave me a call, and I jumped on it. And then Rick Ware bought the team, and that's been awesome. He's like a little kid that just loves racing, and just a great guy. And Clay, of course, you can't say enough about that guy. He's just a fantastic person, and I love working with him.
Has he ever had a bad day, by the way? Has Clay ever had a bad day?
Yeah, but one.
Okay,
we know what that's about.
Well, when he lost his son, but
when he lost his son, that was tough. It's like I told my brother earlier in the year, and it was after Force ran into JR, and then they blow it up first round, and then they go to Vegas and DNQ, and he told me that they had a bad couple races, a bad weekend of racing. I said, no. I said, we've never had we've only had one bad day of drag racing that I feel that my brother and I have had, and that's when we lost Scott.
Sure.
And I said, every other day would be, considered a great day of racing. And like I told him, I said, I would gladly DNQ for the rest of my life if Scott could be back here with us today. Not necessarily for me, but for his dad, for his wife and kids. That's I'd give anything to have him back. So
sure.
That's the only bad day we've had.
Clay, you and Clay obviously share, I think, a lot more than people realize, because you've both kind of experienced that tremendous sense of loss well before you would have expected, obviously, with Clay losing his son at such a young age, and then you losing Tammy, your wife, to cancer. Do you think that that's helped you guys kind of in your relationship and your ability to just kind of be open about things and honest with each other on stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember after my wife passed away, we got a plant from Clay and Donna, and it was really cool, and we actually planted that, and at my old house, and the people that live in there now probably don't know the meaning of that plant, but I thought it was really cool, because you get a lot of things, flowers, and they don't always last long, but this plant was going to last, hopefully a lifetime. And and then when Clay lost his son, it was pretty devastating, for him and for Donna, and all of a sudden we kind of shared something. It's just like Doug Herbert, he losing his two boys, and we all know about the big old starting line thing at Reading years ago, and that kind of brought Clay and Doug together. And I think when I came to work with Clay, I always liked Clay. Always liked him. Just thought he was a fantastic guy and a fantastic driver and all that. And but when I got to work with him and then got to know him more on a personal level, it was like, man, it was really cool, and it's really special. And I think we both appreciate every day, no matter what it is, especially at the racetrack. I know Clay, he loves driving that race car, and he loves interacting with fans, and he's just a fantastic guy. And I think we look at every day that we're at the racetrack is like, it doesn't get any better than this. And there's nothing that's going to, tell us that we shouldn't be here or we shouldn't have fun being here. And yeah, we're both very competitive, obviously, but I think we really, really enjoy working with each other just because of that. It's a really cool relationship. And Donna, his wife, is just fantastic. And she's just an amazing lady and just so much fun with them too. And they're such good people. And I hate to say they're like simple people, but really they are simple people from down in Tennessee.
Yeah. Yeah, that's he when I say he never has a bad day, it's like the guy is constantly smiling, he's constantly shaking hands, he's constantly putting off the great vibes out there at the track, and he's definitely. I mean, when he won his first race, what was that in Bristol a couple years ago? I mean, the place just. I mean, everyone. You couldn't say
on Father's Day.
Yeah, on Father's Day.
Yeah.
Unbelievable story, cool. And that was what I mean. And you were just like, good for this freaking guy. He's won on every other level, and then to finally win out there, and it was just, he's got such a magnetic personality, and it's fun to, it's fun. I mean,
it's awesome.
Yeah, and what about the differences working with Clay and then working with Connie? I mean, Connie was that guy back in the day. I mean, I'll never forget Connie and Doug stopping their car in Pomona at me as we're walking out. This is back when I was doing Team Mellow Yellow, and Connie saw me. I was interviewing a fan, and I hit the fan in the face with a microphone, and I did it repeatedly. Every time I was like, hey, what's your name? And I hit him in the face. They're like, and it got to the point where they just stopped my hand after the fourth time. And Connie stopped the car, and Doug opened the window, and Connie goes, that was the funniest shit I've ever seen. And I was like, Connie Kalitta, yes, thank you for noticing me. But that guy was just fun too. What are the big differences working with the Clips? I mean, you were there for 30-something years and just getting started with Clay. There's got to be some fundamental differences, right?
Oh yeah, there are, and whether it was Connie, Scott, or Doug, they're just fantastic people, and Scott was like a big brother to me. He was he was something, and and our good friends, like Nicky Bonifani or my brother, some of the characters from the past that worked at Kalitta's. I mean, we truly enjoyed Scott because he was, he had this really rough exterior and wanted to portray as, he was a badass and all this stuff, which he was. But deep down, he had a big heart, and Connie's very much the same way. Connie is just a amazing person, and you kind of when you look at how successful he is just in everything that he's done, whether it's his air cargo business or his racing, he's put a lot of work into it, and I don't know that there's that many people left in the world who would work as hard as Connie Kalitta did, to achieve what he's achieved, professionally in life with business and with his racing program. And, it was a shame when we lost Scott because you really started to see that relationship between Scott and Connie blossom. Scott was very protective of his dad. He'd give his dad a hard time and vice versa, but you knew deep down that they loved each other very much, even if they never showed it so much or told each other. Just good people. And then Doug, he is awesome. He's like that professor, wears his glasses and, he's very, very unassuming that this guy can get in a race car and just be an awesome driver. Doesn't have much to say, but just the one thing about all three of them is they have big hearts, and that makes them really amazing people in my book. And, I tell people when they ask me about the differences between Clay and Doug or Scott, I said, Clay just talks a lot more than both of those guys. And, but he's equally as talented. And that's what's really cool is that, I've been pretty blessed to work with some great drivers, over the years, and definitely Clay and Doug and Scott are like the top of the list of just how awesome they are, both on and off the track.
Yeah, Doug, I feel like it's something that we could do a better job of in general. But Doug was a world champion sprint car driver. Like, that's when we all sit here and celebrate Tony Stewart and Kyle Larson and Jeff Gordon and like the things they did. And Doug Kalitta was that good, like at the time before he went drag racing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Tony Stewart would tell you that, because I know in the USAC sprint car stuff, I think it was the midgets. I think 1 year Dougie won the championship and Tony Stewart finished second. And the next year Tony Stewart won it and Dougie finished second. So they definitely competitive on the racetrack. And to say you beat Tony Stewart on a sprint car track, that's saying something, because Tony Stewart is probably, when you look at it, probably one of the best like drivers ever, like period. You could put that guy in anything and he could drive it. And he's that talented. And for Dougie, I think it's kind of the same way. I always wish Dougie would have got a shot more at some of the whether it was NASCAR or open wheel stuff. And I know Connie tried to get him some deals in there and it didn't pan out the way that they had all hoped. But, Dougie's awesome, man. He's just a great driver. And Scott was pretty talented too, doing a lot of different things. A lot of people didn't know that, he went to Bob Bondurant school way back when. And, he's pretty good driver in his own right.
Dougie strikes me as the type of guy who, if he would have ever gotten like an Indy 500 ride, like he's so like methodical and analytical, and like obviously with the stuff he does flying airplanes and driving that car, he strikes me as the type of guy that like that race would have been perfect for him, because you give him 500 miles, you give him 3.5 hours to sit there and think about like, how do we make it a little better here? How do we that like, it's like the exact opposite of the drag racing world where you just get in and smash the gas and react and go. Like he would have had that time where I could have totally seen like Dougie, like in like a Scott Dixon sense, right? Where you're like, oh, like 100 laps into the Indy 500, he's in 15th place, and with 30 to go, he's in third, charging through the field. And you're like, where the hell did this guy come from? Scott Dixon's won a bunch of races and championships doing that. Dougie totally strikes me as like that same personality. Like everybody thinks he's just like quiet, but like he's always thinking, right? Like that guy's always thinking.
He pays attention to things, and you wouldn't think so. And I remember way back when I first started working there, Connie had bought his a Mike Case Top Fuel dragster, which that was the hot ticket back then. I think Bernstein had one of those cars. Daryl Gwynn had one. Mike Casey was out of Oil City, Pennsylvania. And so when you got these chassis, they had nothing on it. So there was no bracketry or tabs for the body. So Connie flew in Brad Hadman back then, and Brad had just started his chassis business back then. So Brad and one of his guys named Stoney, he came in and they put body on the car, did all this stuff. But we remember, because he had, back when I first started there, Dougie was working in one of the engine shops building engines. I think it was for like the Turbine Beach planes that Connie had back then. And he had his toolbox out there. And so Dougie, not everybody knows Dougie's like a world-class welder. And so Dougie was helping, with things, getting some stuff done, but his toolbox was there. And so we were kind of working out of his toolbox a little bit. So at night, one of the guys that worked on Connie's car, Greg Hessler, he pulls out this notebook and he goes, "Man, check this out." And Dougie had been taking notes of Connie's race car, because back then Dougie did the bottom end on Connie's Top Fuel car. And Dougie would take notes on everything that the car did on the run, and then what Connie would do for the next run. So like whatever changes. And this was all stuff that Dougie would, whether he heard it from Connie or he knew that this is what the changes that were being made for the next run. And he just like kept notes of all this stuff. And Dougie switched on, man, I tell you. And that's why he is what he is. And, he's, been through every part of the airplane business. And Connie, like, had him building engines, had him in sales, had him doing all these different things. And to where now Dougie has his own very successful business with Kalitta Charters. And, you don't get that by not paying attention to details. Definitely detail oriented.
Let me ask you this way. This is probably going to be a dumb question from a dumb person. We were talking about how talented these drivers are. What makes a talented driver? I mean, I look at Jason Galvin, and he tells me how talented he is, but I haven't seen him win a race. I'm very upset with him, and I think he needs to start doing better, and I'm hopefully Indy he will do something better. But, I mean, is it just something you're born with? Is it something, like you say, Doug is, like, taking notes? And just what makes a talented driver? Because we see these drivers, and for me, I just think it takes guts to get in one and just hit this and stomp on the loud pedal, like Clay says. But we know there's more to it. What makes a good driver, a talented one?
I would say, obviously you have to be born with it a little bit, especially you drive a funny car or a top fuel car. But I think a lot of it is the willingness to accept criticism or constructive criticism, or acknowledge that they made a mistake. And I think that's one of the things, like Clay and I, we have this relationship. Like, if the car smokes the tires or doesn't run as good, I mean, I'm the first one to say, man, I messed up, and I didn't do a good job here, didn't do a good job there. Clay, like, if he doesn't cut a good light, or good example was at Seattle. He red lit in the semifinals, and within minutes, we have a group text between Clay and myself and Rick Ware and Robbie Benton, the president of Rick Ware Racing, and he was on the phone right away. He says, "Man, guys, I screwed up. It was just time to go." And he doesn't make excuses. Like, if he doesn't have a good light or has a red light, he doesn't make excuses. He just says, "Hey, I messed up, and time to move on." And I'm kind of the same way, when the car goes out and smokes tires, I said, man, I was pushing it too hard. And we had a lot of that earlier in the year. And Clay was always, like, "Hey, we're going to get it the next time. We're always going to get it the next time." So we have each other's backs. And
sure.
I think when you, have a driver that maybe doesn't want to admit they made a mistake, or try to push, like whatever they did, whether it was a red light or, losing on a hole shot, whatever. I mean, if they try to, like, start blaming it on other people, they're not looking at themselves. That makes it tough. But I mean, fortunately for me, I've been around some great, drivers. I've been able to work with some great drivers over the years, and haven't had to experience that a whole lot. But I think you're born with it a little bit. You just have natural talent, but at the same time, you've got to be able to be accountable for what you do out on the racetrack. If you make a mistake, just be accountable about it and move on. And because, one of the things I learned years and years ago when I went to Rick Hendrick's shop, Jeff Gordon's shop in particular, big sign there that said team, and and team stood for together, everyone achieves more. And I believe that in drag racing from head to toe. Like, it's not just about me. It's not just about Clay Millican. It's about our entire team. It includes Rick Ware, Robbie Benton, and the girls that work in the office, and the crew that works on the team. Like, when we're in sync, we're going to do well. And if we're not in sync, then we're not going to do well. So, us as crew chiefs, we also have to listen to, the driver. If they're like, "Man, this thing's like going right, or it's going left, or I'm having trouble with this," and we have to be able to listen to that and accept that, and try to look into it. Clay is great. He has what he calls his butt-o-meter. Right. And he'll come back. my butt-o-meter says this. I tell you what, he's right 90% of the time. Yeah. And he knows, like, the guy is so switched on. He really knows what's going on. And I joked with him. I said, man, when you quit driving, you should just become a crew chief too. Oh no, man. He says, I'm just the driver, man. I sign autographs and talk to people, but he's really switched on, and the feedback he gives me is awesome. And and that's what you need. Like, I need to become a better crew chief. You have sure. Feedback like that. It always makes things a lot better.
I feel like Clay's going to be a great team manager one day, right? Like, he's going to stop driving, and then like somebody like Justin Ashley is going to hire him and just be like, here, handle all the business stuff for me so I can go from cutting 35 lights to 15 lights. And Clay's just going to be like, all right, I got this. And like 3 weeks later, there's going to be like 40 new sponsors, and Clay's going to be the mayor of the pit area and the president of the pro and like whatever else he wants to be.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Hey, there was something you said, Jimmo, that I kind of wanted to go back and touch on, because I don't know if enough people remember this or realize it, but you talked about when we lost Scott and how he was just kind of coming into his own in his relationship with Connie. And, I remember obviously growing up, Scott, and it was the rough and gruff Scott, right? It was the world champion Scott. It was, backflips at Gainesville, and that was Scott Coletta. But he was just this like hard guy. And then I was a little kid, and then I was kind of fortunate enough to, when he came back after taking those years off, I was, growing up, I was in my teens, late teens, had worked a little bit thanks to, some of you guys on Shirley's car that last year. So I got to know Ron and you guys better. And Ron went over obviously to start working with you guys after Shirley retired, and you guys had the multi-car team. And Scott, to me, was like a totally different person that second time around. Like it just seemed like he was enjoying it more. Like it was more fun to him. I don't know if like enough people remember that, or fans on the outside, because they probably just saw Scott Coletta, and like that's the fans gravitated back to Scott Coletta, like the and tough Connie's kid. I'm gonna knock you out if I don't like what you say, and drink Coors Light and have my Swisher Sweet, and that's Scott Coletta, right? And he was like, I don't know if that was the combination of kids growing up and him getting to kind of race with family, or what that was, but he was a totally different guy when he came back.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're the son of Connie Coletta, that's tough in its own right, because Connie was obviously a tough guy, and he didn't take crap from anybody. I think like Connie and Ed Ace McCullough were probably the two biggest badasses in drag racing off the track. And, so when you're kind of like growing up and you're the son of a guy like Connie Coletta and Scott, he loved his dad. He idolized his dad, for everything that he was. And I think what changed for Scott is he started a family, and that was big for him. Mary and Kathy, I remember when they first met, and then Corey comes along, and then Colin comes along, and Scott was really proud to be a dad. He was a very, very proud dad, and we all look at things like, as we're kids growing up, that like, well, I'm going to do this better. And Connie, back then, I mean, he was a guy who traveled around the country racing, and absolutely, that's what he did to support his family. And he was gone all the time, doing that. And then, later in life, he was very fortunate and started flying, and he started his business and things like that. So Connie was a guy that was always on the go, and Scott, he was pretty family focused, doing things with his wife and kids and stuff like that. So I think when he came back that last time, because I knew when he retired from racing back in, it was after the 97 season, and that's when Doug got in and started driving. Scott acted like he didn't miss it. But for him, it was, he spent time with his wife and kids, and then the racing bug got back to him. And I think Connie really wanted Scott back out there too, because Scott loved, Connie loved racing with his son and his nephew. He thought that would be the greatest thing ever. And, when we were able to do that, I think, as we get older, we realize things more, and we're not so quick to react on things. And I think Scott looked at it as an opportunity to spend time with, with his dad and spend time with his cousin Dougie and to be out there. It was like two things that he loved, was drag racing and his family. And, and then when he was able to like bring, either one of his sons to the races with him or both of them, that was a big thing for him. And Scott, he mellowed out a lot as he got older, as we all do. And, and I always felt like Scott and I, we had a really good relationship because, my dad was not tough on me, but he was, both my dad and my mom, they raised me a good way, and they didn't, we always had that fear of like, okay, man, we don't want to screw up because we don't want Davo, whooping our butt or something tomorrow. And so, my dad was the same way with his shop. He dragged me into the shop whether I wanted to go or not. And so we kind of had a good relationship because, we had, both our dads were tough, and that made it, made us have a real good relationship. And it was funny because when I first went to work for Connie, everybody's like, oh man, he's hard to work for. I'm like, man, he's like my dad. He's like, I don't see what the big problem is here. Later in life, I think both Connie and Scott, they mellowed out with age, and then they really started appreciating that time that they had with each other. And, especially Connie, he was a proud grandpa too, having, two grandkids, with Corey and Colin. I think, Connie was absolutely proud of that. And Scott was proud of it. Scott was proud to be a dad. He's just, it was neat. And you kind of seen this transformation, because like when I came to work for Scott, I was 21 years old, and Scott was like 25. And we were no different than any other 21 and 25-year-olds out there. We wanted to have fun in life, and we wanted to work hard. We wanted to play hard, and it was a good time. It was an awesome time. Sometimes, like during that time, you're like, man, what did I get myself into? And when I look back at some of that stuff, it was a blast. I mean, an absolute blast. Like some of the crazy things that we would do, that you're like, wow, did we really do that? And in these days, you definitely couldn't get away with any of that stuff anymore, especially with cell phones and social media. We'd all be in trouble.
Well, it's funny. The cool thing about the Kalitta team, and you guys, it was a family, talking about Connie love racing with his son and Doug, his nephew. But then you grow up, you're 21 years old, you get married, you have a daughter, and all of a sudden your daughter's at the track. I mean, Ashley, by the way, the O thing is my favorite thing. Jim O, John O, Ao, everybody. That was the best part about it. Davo, they're all, and that's the cool part, because 21 years old, you go through your 20s, and you probably, I don't know exactly when you got married, but you get married, but then your whole family's now part of that whole group. And it was cool to kind of see you, just for me being on the outside, and I got to hang out with you guys. Tommy Delago says that Scott was the man, period. I got to DJ Tommy and Rachel's wedding, and I got to go to Mexico and hang out with all you guys. And it was just, you guys just let me in, like, hey, this is this freaking idiot. And the best thing from that whole wedding was Chad Head being, Chad Head the entire weekend, and I'm
Chad Head being Chad Head.
The
quote of the show.
Wait a second, Tasty God. This is the best line ever. Chad Head. I mean, it's all the Kalita guys. They all. I might not be on a first name basis with everybody, but Chad Head goes as I'm going. Now it's time for the maid of honor speech. Chad Head goes, "It's the mellow yellow guy." Like I'd been there for a weekend, and and I'd seen him 19 times, saying hi, how's it going? It was just funny, but that's the cool part about that whole clinic thing. You talk about having your whole family be involved and growing up in that. I mean, that had to be a pretty cool experience.
Oh, it was awesome. I met my wife, Tammy, working at Kalita Motorsports, and I'll never forget it. It was pretty funny because Scott and Kathy had gotten married, and Scott kept, bugging me. He says, "When are you gonna propose to Tammy?" And I'm like, I don't know. But I knew what I wanted to do. And so I went and I bought a ring, an engagement ring. And I went to Service Merchandise. I don't know if you guys Service, but I went in there because they had financing and they had a decent reputation for rings and stuff. So I went and bought this ring on my own. And I didn't know the difference in cuts of diamonds and size. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so I get this ring, and I propose to my wife, to Tammy. And then Scott and Kathy had come over to our apartment and later on. And so they showed, of course, Tammy showing Kathy the ring. And then Scott, he got mad at me. He goes, "You asshole." He goes, "I told you I wanted to go with you to go ring shopping." And he says, "Now you bought a bigger ring than what Kathy has. Now I'm going to have to go out and buy her a new ring." I go, "Well, you shouldn't have been such a tightwad," but it was really cool. And, and Scott was very encouraging, for Tammy and I, and then Ashley coming along, that's been the most amazing thing. And my daughter, Ashley, she's just the greatest thing in my life that I could ever have. And I spent, went down to, she lives in Austin, Texas now. And I went down there over the weekend. My friend Bruce Reed from Australia, who's over here with me, we went down to Austin and got to hang out with Ashley O and her boyfriend Lake. And then we, went down to San Antonio, did some stuff down there, Riverwalk, and saw the Alamo. It was a little warm, but it was a good time. And I just love spending time with Ashley. And she is absolutely my biggest supporter, motivator, everything. I mean, if the car runs good, she's there cheering us on. If we're struggling, she's still there cheering us on no matter what. And it was really a cool time. And, and Ashley, absolutely, grew up around the sport. I told people, like, the first race that she ever went to was in 1995 at Dallas, and she was probably 5 months old at that time. We won the race in the Top Fuel Championship that weekend with Scott. In 1 weekend, I go, "Well, we can't do any better than this for her after." Right. So I told her, I said, "Your first race out, you were there for everything." So that was pretty cool. But yeah, having the family thing was a big thing, after Tammy passed away, I've got this 18-year-old daughter that, I'm like, what do I do? Like, she just graduated from high school, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with her? But everybody at Kalita was awesome. They were like, Rachel Delago, she's like, "How about we have Ashley be in charge of all the social media?" And I'm like, okay. And I said, "But she's never really done that." "Yeah, but she's 18. She knows how to do all this stuff." And she jumped right in and did a great job. So the support from everybody there in the organization was amazing. And it helped me and Ashley, get through the passing of Tammy. And because if it would have been one of those deals where, I didn't have racing or she wasn't able to come with me and do all the things that she did, it would have made it a lot tougher. So being out there with our racing family was huge for both of us. Absolutely.
Talk to me about this. Jason Logan and I both have copies of this, and this actually, your book, Top Fuel for Life, actually sits in my nightstand next to my bed. Honestly, it's the only book that's in the nightstand. So, what inspired you to write a book? Like, what first moment where you thought to yourself, I need to write about my life?
Yeah, well, it was other people telling me I should, and had some friends of mine, Brian Marshall and Scott Garwood, and they came to Michigan. It's after the season was over in 2013, and I always liked talking about Tammy and the things that she kind of went through, especially when she got cancer, and and I would like say things, and that one day they're just like, "You ever thought about writing a book?" I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Well, we think you should. Like, we think you have a lot there that, maybe you can help people." And I said, "I have no idea. I don't know anything about writing a book. I didn't do very well in school. I was just there to take up space, and then eventually they told me to leave. They didn't want to see me." But I said, "I don't know anything about writing a book." I go, "Do you guys know anything about writing a book?" They're like, "No, but we might know somebody who can help us." So anyway, it all kind of came around, and this lady said she would help us with this book. And I'm like, at first I'm like, man, I don't know that I want to, do anything like that. Because I really don't know what I'm doing. But fortunately for me, I got hooked up with a lady named Michelle Kelly. She was my ghostwriter, and I didn't know ghostwriters existed. But she was a fantastic lady, and she listened. I did all these audio tapes of kind of being interviewed and asked questions and whatever. And she put all this stuff together and like created a timeline and a story arc. And so we started working together on this book, and she was pretty impressed with the fact that she would send me like a chapter, and I would go through it, and I might change some things and this and that. And she's like, "It's pretty impressive that you do this," because most people that have ghostwriters, they let the ghostwriters do everything, and they don't make sure everything is right. And the one thing I wanted to do with that book is I wanted to try to be as correct as I possibly could. And, whether it was stuff early in my life as a kid or late in life with racing. And, so I would like text my friends like, "Hey, did we do this back in, 1989, or did we do, just stuff like that, just to make sure that I didn't put something out there and people read it and go, well, that's a bunch of BS. So I tried to be as correct about everything as I could, because I didn't want to like exaggerate on things or lie about things or be wrong about something. And that was the biggest part for me. And when the book was done, and the first copy of the book got sent to my house back in Michigan, and Ashley O came in, and she saw the book sitting there. She goes, "Is that your new book?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And I hadn't even looked at it yet. And she goes, "You mind if I read it?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely. You're more than welcome. I'd love for you to read it." Now, kind of a little backstory with Ashley O and Tammy. They were fanatics about proper punctuation, spelling, all this stuff. Me, not so much. And they would let me know about it. We'd go to restaurants. It was a game for them to find typos in menus and things like that. So one of the things I stressed to to everybody. And we had like two or three editors on this book. One that was for sure for the book. And then my ghostwriter, Michelle, her husband, Roderick, he was a sports editor for one of the newspapers in Chicago. And then there was another editor that was involved. So I said, this book cannot have typos or misspellings or anything. Otherwise, I will hear about it from Ashley O. So Ashley O takes this book. So it gets later. I go to bed, go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and the book is back on the kitchen island. And so I asked Ashley, I said, when she got up that morning, I said, hey, did you have a chance to look over this book? She goes, yeah, I read it all last night. And I go, really? So I go, well, what do you think? And she goes, well, I thought it was really good. And I'm like, well, no. Okay, that's cool. Is there any typos or like, punctuation wrong or whatever? She's like, everything was really good, except there should be, there's a couple spots where it needed an Oxford comma. And I'm like, what the hell's an Oxford comma? Never heard of it, right? And so I go, what is that? And so she tells me, she goes, it's like, for breakfast, I'm going to have I'm going to have eggs, comma, toast, comma, and orange juice. She goes, you did like eggs, comma, toast, and orange juice. So it kind of makes it like toast and orange juice are one thing. And I go, okay. So anyway, I talked to everybody involved with the book, Michelle and everybody. And so I said, they're like asking me, did you get a chance to look at the book? So, well, no, Ashley O read it last night. And their first thing was like, what'd she think? And she thought it was really good. No, what about the spelling and the punctuation? And I go, well, she said everything was really good. There was a couple spots that we could have used an Oxford comma in, and a few of them are like, what's an Oxford comma?
Right.
And the main editor of the book, she goes, she does have a point. And she says the Oxford comma is used more in proper English than what we do over here in America. But yeah, she has a point. And I'm like, damn it.
I'm dying that Oxford commas came up because literally last week, Allie Bland, who works at NHRA on the media relations side of things, put a thing on Instagram last week, and it was literally a survey about like Oxford commas, yes or no. And I was like, no, like, because I come from a journalism background, right, and at Arizona State, big time journalism school, but they taught us like no Oxford comma in like modern day AP style writing for print and web and TV and stuff. So I was like, no. And Allie, who has written a book, we've had her on the show and talked about it, was like, no, you're wrong. Oxford commas, they have to be there, Cal. And she loves the show. So she's going to listen to this. And right about now, she's probably falling over laughing. And her husband, Cody's probably like, what are you doing? Like, I can already see where that's going if she's not watching it live or listening live. But it's just so funny that it came up. Yeah, I want to ask you, Jimmo. Go ahead, J-Lo.
I was just going to say that book was really, really good. And, it read like a love letter to your wife, and it was amazing.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask about, J-Lo, because I love the start of this, and it was going to be the last thing I asked you about here, Jimmo, because we've had you for an hour and we appreciate it. But the opening, every book, usually opens some sort of prologue or some sort of foreword from somebody else. What connected for me so much with this is the opening of your book. There's a quote here that I think is a really good quote. But the opening of your book is a love letter. And it's literally a letter that you wrote to Tammy. And it had been, 2+ years since she passed. But it struck with me, it connected with me so much because I have found, especially in my adult years of life, post-college and everything, that I best deal with grief or tragedy through writing. And I write letters to or about things. I did it, the most recent one I think of, I wrote a very sincere letter effectively to Kobe Bryant and the Bryant family, who I didn't know personally, but Jimmo knows this specifically. The Lakers, big part of our family's life. Me and my cousins, one of whom works on Doug Coletta's Top Fuel Car. The other one who's a very successful part of a family business. The third one is married to Thomas Prock. Like, we grew up going to Laker games with my uncle and my dad, and that was like a thing we did. We watched the Lakers on TV. Christmas dinner was done in time so we could watch the Laker game or go to the Laker game. And Kobe, that was during the years of Kobe and Shaq, and it just played a very big part of our life. And Kobe passed away with his daughter, and at that time I had like a 1-year-old, so I wrote a letter. That's how I coped. That was like a very emotional day. And that night, my wife went to work, my son was 1.5 years, went to bed, and I just wrote until I couldn't write anymore. I did the same thing when I lost my grandmother. It's been 3 or 4 years now, and my grandmother was like one of the most important people, not the most important person in my life. And I just wrote. After she passed away, I wrote her a letter. And I'm curious what that was like for you when you sat down a couple years later to write this book and wrote The Open. I'm guessing that's one thing that you didn't use a ghostwriter on. You at least wrote that out and maybe had them clean it up. But that's a very intimate, personal thing that you put out there for everybody, what that experience was like.
Well, and before you answer that, though, like, I was on a plane after I got the book. I lost my wife. I had 3 boys, and I lost her to cancer. And when I read that letter, I was like, oh my, I was literally, before we got off the ground, sobbing my eyes out, because you laid it out there. And it hit a nerve for me. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is tapped in. He loved this woman with all his heart. You could tell in this right here. Yeah, go ahead. Answer Jason's question, because it was moving to me, and it made that book super special.
Yeah, and then to be honest with you, the idea came from when we lost Scott, and before the end of the 2008 season, before the banquet, they wanted to do this video, like, honoring Scott. And my brother and I, we kind of collaborated on a letter to Scott. And so we did this, and, with filming, we each read our part, of the letter. And, it was part of the banquet back then, when they did a tribute to Scott. And so when this book came about, we were talking about things, how do we open this book? And the letter got brought up, what we did for Scott. And I said, maybe it'd be kind of cool to do like something along that lines, to begin the book, that I write a letter to her. And it was really cool, that I was able to do that. It was kind of like almost catching up with her. Like, here's what's been going on, and, things like that. And, for me, dealing with the loss of her, being able to talk about her and, and smile and laugh about things. And even when she was sick, because there were some funny things that she did, while she was sick, and, wanting to share that with people, because, there's, I feel very fortunate that both myself and my daughter, especially my daughter, has really come through all this in an amazing way. And my daughter, every now and then her birthday falls on Mother's Day, because she was actually born on Mother's Day, May 14th, 1995. So she has those moments, those tough moments, and each year it gets a little bit better and better. And I tell her all the time, I said, there's a lot of people that are very happy that you were born. It's one of the things going down there this past weekend. Yesterday was Tammy's birthday. And so we, part of our deal, we went out and had some dinner and had some, dessert for Tammy and stuff. And it was a fun, it's a fun time. And we tend to, and Ashley's really gotten a lot better over talking about her mom, some of the funny things that she did. Because initially, she's a 18-year-old kid that, lost her mom. And, and that's not good. I can't imagine, anything like that for a child. But I think talking about her really made things, so much better. And over the years, she's gotten a lot better about it. But I like to talk about Tammy. Like, so some people come up and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry bringing up your wife." No, don't be sorry. I enjoy talking about her. And if there's something that I can do or say to help people that are in a similar situation, that's what I like to do. And I remember when the book first came out, a lady brought her friend out who had just lost her husband about a month prior to the race, and she had bought this book for her friend, and she had read the book, and she never been to a drag race before, but she wanted to come out and meet me and tell me how much the book meant to her. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing to have an impact like that on people. And I always thought, like, if the book can help one person deal with something, then it's done its job. And I was pretty happy with a lot of the positive feedback that I received with that book. There's some people, of course, are like, "Man, how come there's no tuning tips on tuning the Top Fuel car or anything like that?" And so they kind of missed the point of what the book was about. But the majority of people, they really, really enjoyed the book, and it was neat, and there's it kind of a funny thing afterwards is a ghostwriter, Michelle. She is an awesome lady, just an Italian lady. I remember when she first started writing the book, she told me she's never cursed in her life, and
she's Italian.
Yeah, and I said, "Well, it's going to be my mission to get you to curse." I couldn't do it, and I said, "Well, okay, well, you're not going to be saying curse words; you're going to be writing them." She's like, "Well, that's a little different." And when she did the book, and she would put like stuff that really there should have been a curse word in there, I said, "Nobody's going to believe this is me if we're not using a curse word here and there." And but just the greatest lady. But she's contacted me, and she's actually there's some interest on wanting to do a movie about this book, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of wild. But she said there's been she had a big time, not a big time like Hollywood producer type or anything like that, but a guy that was involved in producing and directing TV shows and some movies. And he says, I could see this book becoming a movie. So she shared that with me. And so she's kind of working on doing some stuff, whatever you would do, to make that happen. And, asked me if I was okay with it. And I'm like, yeah, I said, that would be really cool if it could happen. I'm not holding my breath, but, there is I guess a shortage of movies now that we have all these streaming services and whatever, and they're just, dying for anything to, put something out there. I mean, it's not going to be out on the big screen in IMAX or anything like that, but you never know. I mean,
hey, can you work out your deal and make Jason and I be involved in this movie? Like, we can be on screen or something. That's what I care about.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
We have to be involved at some point.
This is my agent, Jason Logan, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to
listen, man, Jason. Hey, we got to turn this thing into some money maker.
I guess,
whether it's
right?
Yeah, or $1,000. We got to make some money on this thing.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. No, but that's cool. But I guess that for you, as somebody who sat down and wrote a book, like, you didn't write a book to get rich, like, or to be a world famous author. Like, you wrote a book because it was a therapeutic thing. And like you said, if it could help some other people deal with the situation that you had to deal with, that nobody should have to deal with, having a teenage daughter and, losing your wife and her mom, then it could, then you've done your job, right? That makes it worth this. And in between, it's therapy for you. So that's got to make you feel good, I guess, that there are people out there beyond the people, you talked about the lady who came and met you at the races and, had never been to a race or whatnot, but there are people out there, business people in the real world, who have read this and thought, okay, this is making an impact on people.
Yeah. When I did the book originally, I, of course, didn't don't really care about, didn't want to make any money with it. And what I did is I started a what they call a donor advised fund, 50. It's because I thought about a 501c3, but I couldn't really pin down what Tammy would want the mission to be about. But I knew she liked so many things. And one of my financial guys that I deal with, he suggested this donor advised fund. And basically, it's just like donating to a 501c3. And so we started the Tammy O Foundation, and people could donate to this. And basically, what it does then, it goes into like, we'll just call it like a mutual fund. So it the money could grow, based on, how well the mutual fund does. But then you have to get like a list of approved 501c3 charities. So I send them in. So like, Doug Herbert's Brakes or the Blaine Johnson Foundation, any of that stuff. We did Drag Racing Association of Women. We did Pandas International. I can't even remember all these ones that we did. And they were all approved. And so then I could disperse the money to those foundations. So I always tried to do that. Because I think these are things that Tammy O would approve of. She loved pandas. She absolutely loved what Doug Herbert was doing with Brakes. So it was really cool, to be able to do something that way. So I didn't tie myself down to trying to figure out a mission that Tammy would like. So it was an easy way for me to do stuff like that. So every amount of money that I make, with the book, which, it's still out there and it still, sells a little bit, but it all goes into the Tammy O Foundation. And I've given a lot of books away. I go and do, some things, maybe that somebody might ask, hey, can you, bring 20 books for our employees, and I'll do that and just give them to them. So for me, it's definitely not about making money with a book. It's more about getting that book out there to people that, maybe it might make a difference for them, down the road, or if they're dealing with something, personal in life, a loss of a loved one or something like that. So, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was, like you said, Jason, it was therapeutic. I enjoyed writing. It kind of allowed me to, relive some things that were cool in my life, or maybe some things that weren't so cool. And it was good, and some people have asked me like, oh, you ought to do another book. I'm like, I don't know what I'd write about, but I'm sure there's a
top fuel tuning advice, Jimmo. There you go. Like you can,
yeah.
All the people who were upset.
Earlier in the year, nobody would have wanted to read that book.
Yeah, but look at you now. It's all
exactly.
One of the best cars in classes over the last 5 races. All right, okay, real quick. I wanna let you go. We try to keep these around an hour, but I couldn't help myself. I was thinking about a Jimmo Top Fuel for Life movie, and I'm trying to cast this, and like who plays Jim Oberhofer, because I think I have the absolute perfect person. Like it hit me right away, no question. But I'm curious. Who plays Jim Oberhofer?
Well, it's funny. We've joked about that, and I've said that I thought about, well, like it should be like Chris Hemsworth that plays Thor or The Rock, right? And
there you go.
Like, no way, that's there. So everybody's going, no, we think Will Ferrell should play you, and I'm like, oh man.
Who do you think, Jason? Come on, give us who do you think it is? As Jason's frozen.
Let's hear you first, J-Lo. What do you got? Oh, am I frozen? Am I back?
No, you're back. He's not as tall as Jimmo, but I would say maybe a Paul Giamatti, maybe a Ray Liotta, a young Ray Liotta gets in there.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you think? What do you think, Jason?
Josh Brolin.
Oh, that's
like no question. Dude, look at that.
I like that.
That is Jim Oberhofer. Like, come on.
It was
Josh Brolin all the way.
We were talking about, okay, well, who would play Tammy? And I said, well, I think Gal Gadot should play Tammy. And then if she does play Tammy, then I'm going to play myself.
Hey, by the way, Nicole, thanks. We know Ray Liotta's dead, but
yes.
Come on.
Hey,
by the way, this is what happens, Jimmo, when you somebody's going to go back and fact check you. Nicole Erickson, she just fact checked.
Yes. Yeah, Ray Liotta is dead. Yes, that is true. I'm telling you, Josh Brolin, like, I think that's perfect. I think he sounds like Jimmo. He looks like Jimmo. Like, yeah, like Thanos. But then, like, I was thinking, like, Only the Brave, like the Yarnell Fire movie, which I don't know, a lot of people, it did terrible in the theaters. It was a great movie. I lived in Phoenix when that happened. So I just thought of him right away. Like, Josh Brolin was the fire captain in that movie. And I thought of, like, his look in that movie is totally Jimmo. He's gonna have to put on a couple of pounds in the belly area. Just as good. Jeff Bridges is good. Jeff Bridges is good. Yes,
that's a good one right there.
Right.
What about Josh Brolin in No Country for Old Men? Oh, what an unbelievable
right.
movie.
See, dude, I'm telling you.
That's just good. I never thought of that.
Will Ferrell could be Jono.
Yeah,
Will Ferrell could be Jono.
That would be funny.
Will Ferrell as Jono would be great.
I'm like, man, as long as I don't look like Ricky Bobby running around on the track with my underwear.
I'm on fire! Help me, baby Jesus!
Oh, that's man. Awesome. That could be fun. We could do a whole episode casting the Jimmo movie.
Oh, my God. Hey, let's write the script. Let's write
here for an hour.
And then we'll read the script, and we'll do the whole thing. We'll perform it right here.
Yeah, you guys will have to go through it and, we don't want to do this. We got to do this instead.
Yeah. See, look, Michael Shannon, Nikki Erickson. Like Michael Shannon, there's another great one. Like Michael Shannon looks like Jim. See, this is good. Dude, we're gonna have like a whole casting. What do I need? What is it? CSA or whatever? What are the casting people they always have in the back of their names? Yep. I need to join whatever that is and be in charge of this. This would be good.
We'll produce it.
All right, perfect. I'm in.
Jimmo, are you excited for Topeka?
I am. I really am. I've always loved that track. With Scott, we won there 6 times with Scott, and it was cool. Like Dave Grubnick won his first race there with us at Coletta's, and Hillary Will and Dougie's won, there multiple times, and it always seems like we always had a good time at Topeka, winning the race and some first time winners there, and it was just a cool place, and I always enjoyed racing there. So I'm looking forward to getting up there, and just like Denver, I always loved racing in Denver, and I'm wanted to win that race for sure this year, and then now knowing that Topeka is this is their last race, it'd be kind of special to win that race with Clay as well, because I know that race is another place that he's won at before, and so that would be cool. I've got a lot of great memories of Topeka. I remember when we ran with Scott's car, we ran 308 miles an hour back there in 1993 at the second Topeka race. And that was like 5 miles an hour faster than anybody had gone at that time. And that was just like so cool. And, that was the first race we won that year, national event with Scott's car. And that propelled us the next year where, with Dick LaHaye steering the ship for us, we just did better and better and better, and it was fun. And I remember when Grubby won that race. Well, oh man, that was his first win, and boy, we had some fun that night, with him. And just a great place to race and hopefully win at.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. I haven't looked at the weather forecast yet, but of the weather in Chicago being pretty warm. And I know for a fact it was pretty warm in Denver, and it looks like it's going to be pretty warm in Topeka. So if I draw Clay Millican in the Sunday morning pool, I'm not going to feel too bad about myself, as Alan Reinhart would say. So,
yeah, I feel a lot better about my hot track tune-up than my cold track tune-up, which is very odd. Because forever I was like, I remember when working for Connie, and we have a 70, 75 degree track. It was like Connie was frothing at the mouth, and then we're all frothing, and oh man, we're going to get after this thing. And my greed got the best of me earlier in the year, just being too aggressive, trying to run 60s all the time. But we've managed to hit on a pretty nice hot track setup where we can run really well. And and it was like driving into Sonoma Sunday morning, Bruce Reed and I, and there's that marine layer there, and I'm like, and we're starting at 10:30, and I look at Bruce, I go, I wish this marine layer wasn't here. And he's like, yep. And I kept waiting, and then the track, was only 105 degrees, and we had to run Grubby, who's the king of just throwing out these great numbers. And I'm just like, man, if we give him, if that racetrack's good, I said he's going to run. Probably, I thought he'd run between a 68 and a 70, and he ended up running a 70. But I knew that we're not there yet on those cold tracks to where we can go throw down like that. I have ideas that we could have done, but it got me in trouble earlier in the year, and I need to learn how to finesse that a little better. But I was like, damn it, I wish this track was 125 degrees, and I would feel a lot better about our chances first round. So when Grubby ran 370 with Brittany's car, I was like, well, that doesn't surprise me one bit that he did that. And Clay, we ran 378, 300. He shot it off early. He might have run 375 if he'd run all the way through, he said. But, Clay, that's what's cool about Clay. He saw her out in front there and felt like, all right, I don't want to tear anything up, and he, gets out of the throttle. But sooner or later, we got to get that cold track tune-up set up because it's coming, and we need to be able to be ready for it.
Well, you don't have to worry about it this weekend.
If
it's gonna be 93 on Sunday, you're gonna get your 125 track temp. You might get more.
That's gonna be awesome.
Jimmo, thank you so much. We've kept you longer than I told you we would, but thank you.
Oh no, this is great, guys. I really appreciate you guys thinking of me and having me on here. And Jason Logan, I don't ever get to see him much anymore. It's like they don't put that DJ stage close to the on the start line anymore.
Yeah, and I'm like attached to it, so I can't get up and off of that stupid thing to say, "Hey guys, what's up?" Yeah. It sucks. I'm stuck there.
Yeah, no, it's a good deal, man. I appreciate it, you guys.
Well, good deal. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Jimmo.
Jim Oberhofer, everybody, give him some love. There he is. Say goodbye, Jim Oberhofer. He's out. Yeah, we kept him a little longer, but why not?
Yeah, we did.
Listen, man, he's a good time. We like him.
Love him.
That book. That book he's got has great drag racing stories in it. It's amazing. Top
Fuel for Life. I looked it up. Available online at most of your favorite retailers and in stock right now on Amazon. So if you have Prime, you could have it by Topeka.
That book, and then I was like, oh, that's cool. So I got a little more insight into the whole Kalitta world. The Right on Track movie. Okay, cool. Now I know about the Erica Enders. We need more movies and books about drag racing people, so I can catch up, and I just don't have to look like a big old dumb idiot when I walk up. Hey, man, how fast that car go? Oh, Jesus, yeah, that's what happens with me sometimes.
Yeah, All right, J-Lo, let's get out of here. I'll see you on Thursday in Topeka. Call me when you get in. Let's get some barbecue.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you guys very much. There it is. We're out of here. Thank you so much. Hope everyone enjoyed it. We will see everybody this weekend.